This is Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. A quick disclaimer. The content you find here is neither intended to be therapy or diagnosis. It is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to yet another episode of Me, I Am Mental, the podcast, where we endeavor to bring you factual, credible, useful, and engaging information on mental health. My name is Charles Adede.
And my name is Darren Collins, and we are not professionals, Charles and I. Nope. We're the opposite of that. We're amateurs in the space, but we believe that there is room for more voices in the mental health space and to sort of move the conversation away from something that might be dramatic or something that might be scary or something that is associated incorrectly with being crazy, but more about mental health as being something that all of us should always pay attention to. That is to say, if you like to go jogging or you like to work out, it's because you're trying to exercise those muscles, and the brain is also a muscle, and the brain is also part of our well-being. And so mental health is a discussion for everybody, not as something that is clinical always, but something that we could all work on. And so here we are at Me, I Am Mental, the podcast. You can go to meiammental.me, which is a very self-centered website name, I think. There's a lot of me's in there. There's no I in team, Charles, but meiammental.me is a place to go. And when you get there, you can see also articles, previous podcasts, and all the links to our other social media. And so Me, I Am Mental is sort of the one-stop shop for who we are. And so you can pay us in likes and shares. If you enjoyed this episode, hey, tell a friend. So having said that, let's get this episode cranking. Yeah?
All right. So today, we're very, very excited. As usual, we're going to be talking about a topic which I think is relevant to very, very many people, not just in Kenya, but all over the world. I think many of us spend quite a bit of time as adults in our workplaces. The workplaces present.
I spent 16 hours here 2 nights ago.
So there, just case in point, Darren, not wanting to go home.
No. I wanted to.
But yeah, so the workplace is in many ways, does take up quite a bit of our time, but the workplace sometimes presents us with many mental health challenges. It's not always a bad thing. I don't mean that a workplace is dreadful. So we're going to look at positive aspects of mental health in the workplace, because work gives us meaning and purpose and helps us do all sorts of things. But at the same time, we're going to just take this opportunity to review perhaps some mental health challenges and best practices in the workplace. From where I sit, I think some of the things to consider when it comes to mental health would be the nature of work itself, sort of work one is doing. Then the interpersonal dynamics at the workplace can also present, interesting mental health issues or concerns.
And you can also bring mental health issues from home to the workplace, yes, where they sort of show themselves in the workplace, but not at home.
Yes, and vice versa.
Again, we're lay people. We're always just guessing. That's why we have guests here. But yes.
Yeah, you can actually also carry mental health issues from work and go and dump them at at home.
Yeah.
So those are the sort of questions or issues we'll be trying to highlight today.
I always thought it was interesting. Our mutual friend who introduced us, John Fox.
Yes.
I used to love visiting him at work because hit 12 o'clock, he had a bottle of wine right there. It's like, that's how he's dealing with work. I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen someone I'm the boss. And it's just wow, that's really cool. I think. Is that cool? I don't know. John's not here to defend himself.
I'm going to sit on the fence on that one.
Sure, if you're listening, call us.
Yeah. So, yes, our guest today is Caroline Karoki. In our usual way, we will allow Caroline we will prod her into telling us a bit about herself.
Yeah, tell us. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yes, tell us a bit about who exactly is Caroline.
Thank you very much, Charles and Darren. I really am looking forward to this discussion. As Charles and Darren have mentioned, my name is Caroline Karoki, and I am a human resource professional. I've been in the practice for the last just about 15 years. And my profession does give me access to engaging with a large number of people, and interacting with different kinds of individuals, and getting into a bit more detail about what's happening with them and around them. And
Did you stay in one place for 15 years, or did you move around?
I wish I had, Darren. No, I haven't. I've actually worked in 3 organizations, and the better part of my career has been spent in the professional services space. So that would be the Big 4 firms. I have worked in a Big 4 firm and a legal environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it must be difficult to move on because it's like a whole new group of people.
That is very true, but I guess it becomes easier if you're moving across the same industry.
Oh, okay.
But I must say, of course, the environment within the professional services, the Big 4 firms, is a bit different. Each environment is unique. It's a bit different from the legal environment. Each environment presents its own unique set of challenges, and I would say, and opportunities as well. And over and above that, I wear many hats, as many people, and I would say especially ladies do. And so I am a wife. I am a mother of 4 children, and I've got to build my career balancing out that. Of course, I am a daughter, a sister, a friend, a mentor. So it's been a very interesting balancing act over the last 15 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how did you end up in the HR profession? Was it something you always wanted to do? Did you just sort of accidentally find yourself? Have you always loved working with people?
I would actually say I have always loved working with people. But interestingly, I found myself in the HR profession. I studied accounting, so I love numbers and figures. And people say that HR professionals, have a certain relationship with numbers and figures.
Yeah,
but I'm not one of those.
Friendly, isn't it?
But I do love numbers and figures. When I was in the university studying accounting, I remember being an intern in a sales job. And I recall my then boss asking me what on earth I'm doing in accounting. Eventually, post-university, I did land on the first job, the HR job. And after 1 or 2 years of trying to get back to accounting, I realized, you know what, the debits and credits are not for me. I would rather just be in a place where I'm engaging with people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is how I found myself in the HR profession, and I do not regret it. I really like the pace of HR. I like engaging with people. I like the dynamic nature of HR. No 2 days are the same for me, and I think I have found a comfortable space.
Brilliant. Yeah. So again, just explain to us. Some people don't know when we say Big 4.
I don't even know what HR is.
I've
been a solo guy. Charlo and I run this place. Do we have HR? No, we don't. Do you know? Have you ever had one? Do you know what it is? No idea either. Yeah. Dennis, do you know what HR actually is? Really? Why do you know? College. Yeah, this guy went to university. I don't know. So if you could describe the Big 4 and HR in a nutshell.
Yeah. So the Big 4 would be the Big 4 previously referred to as audit and consulting firms in the world. Okay. And the Big 4 would be your KPMG, Ernst & Young, PwC, and Deloitte. And so those are the big fours. And of course, HR is human resources, has now transitioned into a cooler name of people and culture.
What do they do? What does
HR
HR do?
is tasked with the responsibility of driving the people agenda within organizations.
Like firing people?
Well, Darren.
No, I'm serious. I have no idea what this means.
Like
This is all
hiring people,
hiring people.
like
Okay, well-
shaping, shaping the culture within the organization through ensuring that the organization has the right policies and
okay.
practices, and
Okay,
yeah,
so
just
like
making the workplace
policies.
a
Okay.
good place to be at.
So do you actually take people aside and talk to them about what's going on, how their work is going, and that sort of thing? Is it like a counselor type thing or something at all?
Yeah, we work closely with the leadership in the organization to shape the culture within the organization. You know, culture is I like to think of it as an iceberg. Is what you experience when you come into the organization. When I came in, you know, the kind of engagement we had. When I came in here, the interactions I had with the individuals here. That would be the culture, but what is behind it is the kind of structures, procedures that you follow, how you engage with your people. That would be, what shapes the culture within the organization. So HR is tasked with that responsibility.
So do you sort of very proactively seek to create a culture by firstly defining the culture you want to create, and then now you go back and strategize and put in place whatever is needed to achieve that culture?
Yes, and of course, culture is not a HR only job. It does take joint efforts, and especially from the leadership, to have discussions around what the organization wants for itself, where it wants to go, and what kind of environment would be conducive to achieve those objectives. And so HR would come in to work closely with the leadership to support that process through various initiatives and processes.
So I once heard someone say that it's easy to change strategy, but it's impossible to change culture. So it's as if you set off with, if a certain culture develops in an organization during its nascent years, it becomes almost impossible to fix it downstream. What's your take on that?
That's an interesting question and an interesting comment. I mean, we do say that strategy eats culture for breakfast.
Yes.
But I would say culture requires very deliberate efforts to transform. So it is possible, but it is a journey. It is a journey. So
Okay.
I would say that it does take a lot of time and effort. And if you can, early on from the inception of the organization, start thinking about where you want to be, and start setting up the policies and the procedures early on, then you're going to benefit from that as the organization grows. But of course, that's the ideal, not what happens in reality. It is possible to change it, but it does require a lot of hard work and efforts, and sometimes going back to the drawing board to look at what you really want and what you need to change up.
We have a culture of shouting in our office. So if we want someone's attention, we would just yell. It's like at someone's house, and the kid yell to the kid, "Hey, Samantha, we need you down here." That's how we do it. That's okay, right? Is that okay?
Well,
it's friendly.
Yeah. I mean,
it's friendly. It's not mean. It's just like, yo.
I need you to bring this down there.
Yeah.
And I hope Samantha can also shout back. And, it's all acceptable.
We all shout, right?
Yeah. Well, no one has shouted at me since I came, so.
It's not in a negative way. It's just like it's easier than calling or walking.
But I think it's also, these are artists and they operate in a,
It's the industry.
It's the industry.
Yeah, it's acceptable.
Speaking of which, I think this is one of the conversations I'd indicated I wanted us to have. So you've been in mostly working in a space that's sort of very corporate in nature, but it might be interesting to know, particularly from maybe a mental health standpoint, or even generally speaking, whether different environments throw up different mental health issues. So, for instance, if people are working in a factory, they face a certain environment, certain culture, a certain way of doing things, which is very, very different from, say, people working in the arts.
Yeah.
Very, very different from people working in a law firm. What is your take around that?
I mean, I would agree. The different industries would have acceptable and not acceptable kind of norms and practices. And I think I mean, what I would say is that I think there are different pressures in different spaces. But I would think that there are some industries and some professions that would be considered a bit more stressful as compared to others. When you think about, I will obviously start from where I am, the legal industry. It does involve long hours. Of course, I know Darren said he has done 16 hours. In the legal industry, sometimes you have submissions and they must get to some place by a certain time. So whatever that takes, you're going to have to do it. Yeah. Some of the decisions are high stake. Some of the matters in the legal profession would have a level of emotional attachment, right? Think about, in the legal space, if you are advising or supporting people on family matters, and those then would put people under a different kind of pressure. So the mental health challenges in that kind of industry would be different from, say, your arts and the entertainment industry. The pressures would be different because I would say, there's also time commitment that is required. Sometimes I have found, especially in our market, in terms of when the work is available, there could be seasons. So you'd find that in a certain season there's a lot of work, in another season there's not too much. What that does is affect the income earning ability, and that causes a different kind of pressure. Think about people, say, in the military, police, people working in emergency situation. There's a different kind of pressure because, of course, for them, most times, and even doctors, is a life and death matter, right? You could end up losing somebody, and when that happens, then it causes a different kind of strain. Sometimes when you reflect back, you'd have wanted to support somebody in a certain situation, say it's an accident situation in a certain way, but you are not able to do that, and that does cause pressure. Within our country, when you look at the ratio of, doctors to our population, police to our population. Not sure what the statistics at the moment are, but I do know that it is a strain, and what that means is that, sometimes they can only do so much, and that does cause a certain amount of mental pressure. So I would say it is different in the different industries, and I wouldn't want to downplay any. I don't think, there's one that's easier than another. It's just that the stresses and the pressures are different.
Are there any general mental health issues that probably cut across?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would say yes. There would be general mental health issues that cut across. And as I speak about that, I just want to think about, number one, what work is. Each of this profession would involve work. Mm-hmm. And when you think about work, just by definition, it's a physical and mental activity to achieve a task or an objective. Mm-hmm. When you think about how much time you spend at work, you spend 16 hours. Someone else would spend 20 hours. Another one would spend 12 hours. Research shows that the average adult spends about a third of their life working. Now, I actually think that post-COVID and with the enhancements in technology, that time period is significantly increased, and work does give a meaning to life. So it's quite a commitment. So I would say, just by thinking about what work is, how much time we spend, there are issues that would cut across. If there are demands on your time, then there is time pressure. If there's demand to deliver, say, high performance targets across every industry. Obviously, we have different kinds of organizations. Some are in profit, others are in not for profit, but they all have objectives that they want to achieve. So it could mean quite some demands on your time. It could mean a delicate balance between work and life, and that can cut across any industry. So I would say that some mental health challenges, like stress, would cut across any industry. Mm-hmm. And of course, prolonged stress would lead to something else. Say your depression, say your burnout. Professions would have, in our work, in our day-to-day, we would, get anxious about different situations, and I would say such challenges would cut across different industries.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I think immediately stress is a given. It's just the intensity and maybe also how much of it there is at any given time, and how you manage it. But stress is a given in many, and then anxiety as well, especially if we consider the economic climate we are currently living in. And then anxiety is also something that's really, really significant. I suppose the other thing that I would say, there's also just anxiety of not having work.
That's a big one.
Yeah, the anxiety and the stress from just not having work or not having enough of it, other than also just having work and then being able to deliver, which is quite serious.
Yeah.
Tied to that, I wanted to know, when you consider the labor market or the just employment, generally speaking, how much awareness do you reckon is there when it comes to mental health amongst employers and employees?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. When I think about the employment space, pre and post-COVID, I would say that COVID was a blessing in disguise to the mental health discussion, because there was a special focus on mental health. But I would say we still have some way to go. We still have some way to go, especially around the area of the knowledge and the stigma. And I guess most of the times the stigma would come from the lack of awareness. So I think we are better off now as compared to where we were pre-COVID. But I would say that we are still not there. And some of the things that make me say that we are still not there in terms of mental health awareness is when I look at some benefits, for example, of employment. in our country, employers are required to provide a form of medical health benefit. And, it's one of the more critical benefits within this market. And most employers will lean on insurance companies. And when I look at even the reputable insurance companies and, how much, say, medical cover they would allocate to mental health conditions, there's still a struggle and is sometimes a challenge for us as HR professionals, ensuring that our employees are getting the right support. And that tells me that we still have not come full circle on matters mental health awareness. But that said, there have been some more deliberate efforts to ensure we are getting this into the limelight.
Does a company need to rely on insurance companies and formal mental health practitioners to deal with mental health with their employees? Obviously, if there is a particular manifestation of stress that moves into something that is clinical, but before that, what do companies themselves? How much are they responsible as leadership for the mental well-being of their employees?
I would say that, of course, as you mentioned, at a certain stage of a mental health issue, you may require a medical intervention or the intervention of a more experienced professional. But even before it gets there, someone does need to identify it, because you would find that how people reach out to get help on mental health matters, most of the time, few times would be the individual, recognizes that they are having an issue and will reach out for help. But most of the times is usually an intervention, and the intervention will come from somebody who is spending a lot of time with this individual.
Really?
Yes.
Most of the time it comes from an intervention. It's not self-reporting.
I would say because of the stigma and the myths around mental health, most of the times individuals will need a little a gentle push to get them to look for that support. So the leaders within the organization, the colleagues, the people who are spending most of the time with this individual, as we said, is a third of your life. Ordinarily.
So would it be like if I came to you, your HR, and I say, hey, Charles is nodding off at work like all the time, I think something's up. Is that what you're talking about?
So what I'm talking about is, you see, you've come to me. I need to get the awareness to a place where even if you do not come to me, because of the individuals who actually need the support, the people who will actually come up and speak are the fewer people. Before you even come up to me, I need to have empowered my leaders enough. First of all, my HR professional does need to be empowered, but my leaders need to be empowered enough to be able to identify the mental health issues when the individuals are not volunteering, or sometimes they are not even aware that they are having mental health issues. So I would say that the larger responsibility here, of course, one lies with the individual, but also an even larger one is those around them, and that would be their colleagues, their managers, and their families. Yes.
It's interesting when you put it that way, because I think the bigger challenge still then is that the levels of awareness coupled with stigma generally make people, and like we say, when we have this sort of economic climate where people are very scared of even losing their jobs, if they're seen to be not productive, can make people diminish their challenges or not want to show up and come up and say, hey, I'm going through this. And then they're not also very certain that if they do, they'll get the support and that they need to manage that situation. And therefore, for now, the best to a point, the best thing would be then to have the people who are in leadership and to create a culture, especially among the people in leadership, to be some sort of guardians in a way, to be looking out for these guys, because even when somebody is unwell, he may not have the guts to say, hey, I am unwell and I need help. So someone in leadership might be the one who then goes and tells them, okay, we can help you out. We are together in this, or sort of shepherd him into a space where they are able to get some help. I don't know whether that is what you're saying.
Yes, that is what I am saying. But what I would say also, there's a number of reasons why people sometimes would not want to speak up. One would even be an issue of upbringing, and we have an interesting culture sometimes this side of the world where you don't speak about some things, and I think this is especially the case for certain genders, right? That just man up, men don't speak about these kind of things, and so. Some of these things, of course, there's a fear of losing your source of income. There's also social stigmatization, losing face, losing friends. Also is a challenge. But what I would say is that for me, it starts with the point of building relationships with those people that we work with, because you're only able to have a meaningful discussion around mental health issues or point out certain things that you're noticing about an individual if that is not the one of the few times in the year you're interacting with them, right? And if you've invested time in building the relationship, it means you've built trust, and it means that even when you do want to have certain conversations, then it's easier for the individuals to open up to you, and they don't view this as a witch hunt. So for me, the number one biggest things is leaders investing time in being genuinely concerned about their people's welfare, and they should be genuinely concerned about their welfare even before there is ever an issue, so that when there is an issue, then it's just part of your ongoing discussion and not the one-off time. When someone is asking me what's going on with you, you've been missing work a lot, then I go on defense mode, because this is something that is out of the norm, right? And I think this is how I would encourage leaders to get close to their people and actually spend time having those conversations and finding out what's happening.
What do you think is the best practice for having those conversations? Like in a very, very literal, tangible sense. Like I'm a leader and I have my employees, and I'm either trying to head it off before it gets somewhere, or I'm noticing something and I need to deal with it. Practically, what do I do?
So I think as a leader, the one thing that I've seen works really well is vulnerability, because the one thing that mental health does not do is discriminate.
Right.
And it does mean that regardless of the position an individual is within an organization, you shall go through periods of stress. You're closing the year, you have not met your performance targets. You are living in this same economy where prices are changing left, right, and center, and the legal framework is changing quite rapidly, and sometimes is to start the conversation from a position of vulnerability. Let's talk about what's going on.
Where does that conversation take place?
Where does that conversation
take place?
I would say that conversation would take place either one-on-one in your regular interactions with people.
At the office?
Yes, at the office, absolutely. Or out of office, when you're having your team building activities. But you do need to make it a habit to just have small talk with your people and find out, what is happening in their lives, and therein lies an opportunity to pick out or mention some of the things that you could be sharing in common, and perhaps continuously seek those opportunities.
I have a question. Is it just building on what Darren has asked? So there is, that would be like a very ideal way to proceed. What is your experience like? Do you find more and more people in leadership willing to be open and vulnerable about their circumstances? Or does it feel like many leaders still fear that if they're open and vulnerable, they would be sort of exposing themselves in a way that would make them lose authority over their employees or the people they're in charge of?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Charles, when you talk about many people having that fear of vulnerability. What I would say is that this whole discussion on mental health and wellness must start from a strategic level, is what the kind of impact the organization wants to have on its people. And I would task the people and culture, or HR professionals, with starting these discussions, because then it is difficult for a leader to start this discussion from nowhere. When HR practitioners embed wellness, and when you think about wellness, it's all facets, from the physical to the emotional to the mental wellness. When you embed this as part of your strategy, then it does mean that you start driving those discussions. You start getting some budget allocations to some of these initiatives. You start the conversations from a wider farm-wide perspective, where you're just creating awareness about different things. Workplace interactions, personality. Financial management. And when you start those conversations, then you create a good platform for the leaders to continue those discussions within the respective team members. And you're also vocal about the support that the organization is providing and how people access that kind of support. So I would say that it starts from having a very clear strategy on wellness, and specifically mental wellness. And when it's a commitment on a strategy, then it means that people are willing to put in their time and money, and it means that you're normalizing those kinds of discussions from a bigger group, and making it easier for the people in the smaller groups to do that. And some other ways that you can do this is also thinking about having mental health champions. Now that you have it as part of your strategy, you have actually given particular individuals within smaller groups permission to be having discussions about mental health. Sorry,
I just exploded, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's take this back a little bit.
Okay. So another consideration is, when you have this as part of your strategy, then you also think about bringing this down to smaller groups, and you can have mental health champions within the smaller groups, and they are tasked with the responsibility to push the mental health conversations within the smaller groups. And then it does then become normal for people to continue that conversation even in one-on-one interactions. So I would say a good leader should be able to tap into that. But I would say that HR professionals do have quite a big responsibility in driving these conversations at the workplace as a way of shaping the culture.
I imagine some smaller organizations, they just aren't like ours. We have there's between 10 and 15 of us. There's not a chance we're going to be able to hire an HR person at this stage of the size of the organization. But it's very easy to see why that would be important. What advice do you have for very small businesses?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question and a very practical one, actually, because I would say that we probably have more smaller organizations than the bigger ones. And I would say then the onus there is on the leaders within.
Because I think we'd be even, I'm assuming, so correct me if I'm wrong, that smaller businesses, which make up the most of the economy, I suppose, are even more vulnerable to mental health issues because they're sort of closer to the line of whether they're going to succeed or fail. So if you have someone who's really, really struggling, who's in a very important position, this could turn the company upside down.
I mean, I would say that for the smaller organizations, then the hope is that they will have leaders that are empowered enough, right? Every organization then must have people who are more senior. Even in the smaller organizations, there are still HR functions running, even though there is no HR department. And so the people tasked with running the HR functions, right, whether it's the head of that team, then need to take on a bigger responsibility. And in such cases, and I would imagine that even in terms of investing the resources on, mental health support, requires, a long and hard think. But that is where then you lean on, say, your medical providers. Any medical providers who is, serious about their business would think about the mental health as a facet in the overall health perspective. And I would also say there's quite a lot of resources, but you do need an individual thinking in that line.
Yeah, because one of the things I think about more and more is that the acceptance of the need for mental health and mental health being thought of positively. Okay, we have to always distinguish between mental health and mental illness. Most of the time we spend a lot of time thinking of it as mental illness, and then we cover it up with stigma, and we're very leery of thinking about it. But if you admit that mental health is a good thing, then you'll be surprised at how much information is immediately available to you, and the contributions you can make in very small ways. For instance, just improving your communication skills, improving the environment, like clarity in terms of how people work, creating systems and structures, and just those little things contribute quite a bit towards providing a safe space where people feel somewhat like they can cope with the usual stresses and strains of work, But if you're not aware, and then you're also not at the meeting that this is a thing that needs attention, then you might just grind people to the ground in the name of productivity, and you end up with a big crisis. So even within small organizations, like you say, with a bit of self-awareness, there's room to actually do quite a bit for your employees and for yourself, because your awareness might also lead to you being aware of your mental health state and doing something about it, so that you manage yourself in a way that doesn't also hurt you, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree, Charles, and I also think from a wider perspective, when I think of the national perspective, I did say that even though we have covered some ground in terms of mental health awareness, there's still an opportunity to cover more ground. And I think there is room, for the government and institutions dealing with mental health to push for more of this policy, so that it is the thing that is at the top of the minds of any person who is running an organization that requires people. The same way that people would, think about the basics. I must pay you a salary because there's a provision for that, and you're giving a service. I do need to ensure your medical well-being is taken care of. I would say there is room to have more policies governing that, so that it is at the top of everybody's minds, regardless of the size of the organization and regardless of whether there is a HR practitioner or not. The same way people comply with the statutories. No one will struggle whether they have a HR or not, to ensure that there's NHIS, there's an NSSF.
Yeah.
It's because there's a penalty for not doing that. And
did I just admit that I'm
right?
out of compliance?
There's a requirement.
At what size? I mean, obviously, if it's a small business and it's a husband and wife and one friend, they're not required to have an HR department, right?
Yes.
No.
How does it work?
No, my understanding of what Caroline is saying is, if the law makes some minimum provisions, regarding mental health, that you must ensure that 1, 2, 3, 4 things are in place, and then if you don't, then you will be penalized. Then more and more people begin to comply, and then regardless of the size of the organization, just by dint of there being a law, it raises awareness and begins to assist.
That's very clear. Is there a law about HR departments? Does there have to be an HR person at a certain scale of company?
Of course, there's been lots of discussions in the HR space about organizations needing to have that support, but I wouldn't say there's a law per se, but there are requirements for any HR professional to have proper certification.
Sure.
And part of getting that certification involves, being empowered about some of these things, which is why organizations then must need to consider having HR practitioners. And what I have seen smaller organizations do is, look for an outsourced practitioner to just, help them, come up with the right structures and support them in some of these things. And then obviously, if they're big enough, then I really encourage organizations to have full-time practitioners, because it is very different looking at an organization from outside in and being in the organization.
So, quick question: in your training as HR practitioners, do you cover mental health? And are you taught how to deploy that in practice?
Yes, I would say that in our training as HR practitioner, we do cover issues of mental health. In fact, I recall in the professional HR papers, there's a whole course on counseling, and before you have discussions on counseling, then you must have discussions around situations that require counseling. So yes, that is one of the things that is taught in professional HR courses.
Is there amongst your colleagues that are HR professionals, is there a gender gap, or is there, what's the percentage of men versus women in your field?
I would say that for the longest time, HR was viewed as a profession for a certain gender.
Soft.
Yeah.
Which one?
The female gender.
Okay.
And that was because of the nature of the profession and the interaction that is in that profession. But that notwithstanding, there are quite some solid men in this profession. I would tell you that my mentor and someone who has walked the HR journey with me is actually a man. And I think more and more it is changing, but it is still a profession that has a significant number of ladies as compared to the gents.
Oh, really? So
yes.
it's lopsided.
Yes, but within my, for example, the team that I have been very deliberate about ensuring that I have a unique mix of both genders. It's not a 50-50, and it's quite a challenge to get the gens. But if you're deliberate, then there is an opportunity to get that, and it's because I appreciate that my clients come from the different genders, and sometimes in the interactions, some people from the some gens will be comfortable having the discussions with me, but others will not. Remember, we spoke about building relationships. Hence, I have tried to ensure that I have at least some gentlemen within my teams.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to be in leadership and have this even be on the even on the radar at all. Like, oh, I'm running a business, and I also have to be conscientious of the mental state of being of the people I'm working around and with, and whether they are equals within the company or new hires that have smaller positions. It came to a shock to me, to that, all right, we're not just accomplishing a goal together, we're also, like, I have to watch out for this.
Yeah.
There is no choice. And there's, I was going to say there's no roadmap, but I'm sure there's tons of books on it. But being an entrepreneur, it's like it's not one of the things. When you start to Charlotte, when we start running a business, we think of all the goals we have to do, the people we need to accomplish it, the skills that we need, the tasks that we need, and then one day, Charlotte actually told me, he's like, Darren, you need to meet with everybody one-on-one, and I was like, why? And he's like, because they're people. And I'm like, okay. And so, but it just never crossed my mind, because it's like, that's not on the workflow, but it's totally, but it's, of course, it's extremely legitimate. I mean, the reason he brought it up is because there was a lot of people having a hard time, and I was one of them. And so my question would be, well, a couple of things. I'm going to ask you a few questions, but one of them is, if you are in leadership or if you are in HR, what are some of the red flags or some of the warning signs that go, okay, there needs to be a deliberate attempt at discussing the mental health with someone? Like, because in a family, it's kind of obvious. There's yelling, there might be alcoholism. There can be all kinds of things that are just like, well, obviously, like, he's freaking out. But at work, people are subdued, they're holding back, they're not trying to be their full selves. And so, but you must be able to identify. There must be red flags, warning signs, check engine lights that makes you go, okay, we need to step in.
Like just before you chime in, so like amongst lawyers, so during the day you're all suited up, buttoned up and prim and proper, and then come 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you just glug your whiskey. Really?
Yeah. That reminds me. Every lawyer I've ever known. No, it's true. I will see them at home with their laptop open, but there's booze. It's just like, this is what I got to do until I fall asleep tonight.
Yeah.
But what, really serious? What's a red flag? What's a warning sign that tell me, like, if I see that happening, I go, oh, I need to.
I would say there are physical signs sometimes. There are behavioral signs. Within an organization, I would think about things like a decline in productivity. And that's why I was saying that you do need to build a relationship, and you do need to be constantly engaging with your people to be able to pick some of the cues. So if I have somebody within my team who was a high flyer and was really committed, and all of a sudden they are struggling to achieve their targets, well, it could be an issue of they're overwhelmed, but then again, I have to have kept in touch with them to know. So I would say, sudden changes in productivity. I would say things like absenteeism. Quite a significant number of unexplained absences. But interestingly, people always will have a reason for the absenteeism. But sometimes those reasons do not just make sense. Sometimes you'll realize people are off on certain days. Every Monday, Caroline wakes up with a flu. I would want to find out, what's happening. I would also say presentism, right? When presenteeism, where someone is present, but you really can't account for their time. Right, that someone is pushing the 16 hours, but you still are not getting any output, right? It could
that's
be,
me.
Yeah.
I did not accomplish 16 hours worth of work. That's for sure.
Yeah. So they are present. You can see them, but you can't account for what they are doing with their time. I would also say a reduction sometimes in the cognitive ability when you realize that someone is struggling to make decisions. They have become very forgetful. I think the question would be: is there something that is happening there? Other things that you would think about are like social isolation. Someone who was interacting with other people. You did mention that there's shouting happening around, and there's this guy who just comes in and shouts, and is the life of the office, and all of a sudden the person is keeping to themselves, and you want to find out what's going in there. Then sometimes it's also in the conversation where you pick out statements of hopelessness. Someone there's a lot of despair.
I had that recently where someone we were working with had made, over the course of a week, maybe too many references to substances.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yes.
that's interesting. So I said, we have a project on a certain day or whatever. I said, why don't we come in early and why don't we have breakfast over at Yaya together? And so I just started talking about life instead of work. And it seemed appropriate, but at the same time it was very deliberate. I was very deliberate about the kinds of conversation we had. And But it wasn't like let's talk or we need to talk or whatever. It just was a conversation. And I would say like 5 hours later, I got a text message saying, "Thank you for the free therapy." And I was like, well, that's not what the intention was, but it was actually, it's like, oh, I did it. I heard the red flags, I acted on it, and it got a thankful response. And then without any prodding, maybe a week later, they gave a report about what they were doing different with their lives. Yeah. And I was like, huh, all right, I guess I do have to pay attention. Because we're not all built for it. So many companies, the leadership within the company, what are the odds? If you're not a pastor who's running, because that's an organization, right? I mean, that makes sense. You're part of your job description is sort of like tending to the sheep or whatever. But when you're an entrepreneur, that's not on the radar.
It's not the first thing you're thinking about.
It's not, but it's obviously very, very, very important.
Yeah.
Is there? But what about the leader? Who's there for them? How does that work? Because what happened to me. I mean, it's this meImental.me. It's all about me today. I went to the doctor. I have Dr. Silverstein over at Nairobi Hospital. I was like, hey man, I got all these things going on, and he's like, well, what is it? And I was like, just the other day I was on the phone with the client and I stammered for like 20 seconds. He goes, you're not a stammerer. And I go, I was when I was a kid. And he goes, huh? And then I said, I find myself like I don't know where I'm at. My brain, it's like my brain is skipping. Something is happening. And I was at the lunch meeting and I felt like I was going to faint. So I came in and my EKG, everything was fine, 100%, everything was fine. And but I was like, I was thinking I need to call someone now. I'm going to fall over. And he's like, yeah, when did you have your last day off? And I was like, it's been a long time. But he was basically like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just stressed out, man. And I'm like, okay. But it'd be nice about an HR department. But so what is leadership? I mean, what advice do you have there for people who are the ones who are supposed to be accountable for their colleagues and their employees? Who's accountable for them?
I think they do take on, like, now in terms of stress levels, that is something else.
Yes. I would say a good level of self-awareness. I mean, Darren, I would say that when someone is a leader, there's a reason why that person is a leader, right? I mean, there's an expectation, right? That, in terms of, exposure, in terms of, their ability to just understand where they are at and when they need to stop and when they need to reach out for help is a little bit more enhanced. It's not always the case. But then I would say in such a situation, this is why it is important to also have a support system as a leader, because sometimes then your support system, which could be out of the workplace, would have a bigger role to play in asking those questions and getting you to think about it. Like, Darren, why have you asked me this question? You asked me the same question yesterday and the day before yesterday. What's happening? Why am I answering the same question 5 times? Are you becoming a bit more forgetful? Are you a bit more tired? What's going on with you? So I would say then that would be the self-awareness, but the support system sometimes the support system might actually be out of the office. We are social beings, and we have people that we engage with and interact with, and in such situations perhaps then they would then come in.
Suggestions for support systems?
Practical ones. Good question. I mean, it varies. For me, my support system would be my husband. My support system would be
married. That might help.
Another very important support system. I encourage every leader to have a mentor. Yeah, and the mentor is there's always someone who is better, doing something better than you are, and the support system can be a mentor. Someone who knows and understands you in a better way, and who can call you out. Darren, I have been trying to reach you, the last 1 week, and every time, we just can't talk. You tell me you're going to call me back, and it's just not happening. Sometimes those people just actually know that something is wrong, and they show up where you are. It could be a close friend. I know for ladies, sometimes we have venting buddies, someone who you don't even need a solution. You just need to let it out, and you're feeling better. So the support system, it does depend on, for some people who are affiliated to certain circles, say if it's spiritual, if they go to a church or they go to a mosque and they associate with a certain group of people, then that could also be their support systems. For people who like sports, and they have people we catch up with, and play some football, that may be my support system that has noticed that I'm skipping the games a lot, or I'm getting tired more than usual. I'm not as excited, and what's going on. So I would say those are examples of the support system.
I always thought
and also professionals. There are also professionals that can play that role.
Oh, I see. Yeah.